I thought catching my wife cheating was the worst betrayal possible. Then I discovered she'd been stealing our kids' college funds for 8 months to finance her escape with her lover. But when she disappeared and her sister handed me a final letter, I learned the horrifying truth about who was really pulling the strings. My name is Michael Clark. I'm 46 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had the American dream locked down tight. A solid electrical contracting business that kept food on the table and a roof over our heads. A beautiful wife named Jolene who seemed to love our life together. For kids who meant everything to me. Levi, 17, and heading to college next year. Asher, 15 and captain of his high school soccer team. Samuel, 12, and still my little buddy who wanted to help with every electrical job. And Liam, 10 years old and the light of our lives despite the tragedy that brought him to us. Liam came to us 3 years ago when his parents, Jake and Sarah, died in that awful plane crash outside Denver. Jake had been my best friend since high school, and Sarah was like a sister to Jolene. When the lawyers told us Jake and Sarah had named us as Liam's guardians in their will, we didn't hesitate for a second. That boy needed a family, and we had plenty of love to give. Our house in suburban Phoenix buzzed with the controlled chaos of 4 kids, homework scattered across the kitchen table, soccer cleats by the front door, and the constant hum of teenage drama mixed with little boy energy. Jolene managed it all like a conductor leading an orchestra. She worked as a marketing coordinator at Pinnacle Solutions downtown, handling campaigns for their corporate clients. I ran Clark Electric with a crew of 6 guys, mostly residential work, but some commercial contracts that kept us busy year-round. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. The house had 4 bedrooms, a pool in the backyard that the kids loved, and enough space for everyone to spread out. Jolene drove a silver Honda Pilot that could haul kids to soccer practice and school events, while I kept my work truck and a weekend vehicle for family trips up to Flagstaff or down to Tucson. Money had always been tight with 4 kids, especially with Levi's college plans looming. Arizona State had accepted him for their engineering program, and the tuition was going to stretch us thin. But Jolene assured me she had it handled. She managed our books, paid the bills, and even handled the business accounting for Clark Electric. "You focus on keeping the lights on in Phoenix, honey," she'd say with that smile that made me fall in love with her 18 years ago. "I'll make sure the numbers add up." I trusted her completely. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife, the mother of my children, and the woman who had opened her heart to Liam when he needed us most. She organized our lives with precision, from soccer schedules to business invoices, from grocery lists to vacation planning. But trust, I learned, can be a dangerous thing when placed in the wrong hands. And the woman I thought I knew better than anyone was about to show me just how little I really understood about the person sharing my bed, my home, and my life. The unraveling started on a Tuesday evening in March, when I came home early from a job that finished ahead of schedule and found something that would change everything. That Tuesday started like any other day. I wrapped up a residential rewiring job in Scottsdale ahead of schedule when the homeowner decided they didn't need the additional outlets in their master bedroom after all. My crew and I were done by 3 in the afternoon instead of our usual 5:30 finish. "Boss, you want us to head over to the Henderson job tomorrow?" asked Tony, my lead electrician, as we loaded our tools into the truck. "Yeah, let's tackle that commercial space early," I replied, wiping sweat from my forehead. "I'm heading home. Jolene's been after me to spend more time with the kids anyway." The drive from Scottsdale to our neighborhood took about 20 minutes in afternoon traffic. I was thinking about maybe firing up the grill for dinner, getting all 4 boys outside to help with something productive. Samuel had been asking to learn more about electrical basics, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity for some father-son time. I pulled into our driveway at 4:15 and noticed Jolene's Honda wasn't there. Strange, since she usually got home from Pinnacle Solutions by 4 o'clock. The house was quiet when I walked through the front door, which meant the older boys weren't home from school yet, and Liam was probably at his after-school program. That's when I heard it. Low voices coming from the kitchen, followed by what sounded like papers rustling. My first thought was that one of the boys had come home sick, but then I heard Jolene's laugh. That specific laugh she reserved for when she was flirting or trying to charm someone. I set my tool bag down quietly by the front door and moved toward the kitchen. The voices became clearer as I got closer. "Are you sure Michael won't be home early?" a male voice asked. I didn't recognize it. "He never gets home before 5:30, Doug," Jolene replied. "Doug? Who the hell was Doug? We have at least an hour." My blood ran cold. I pressed myself against the hallway wall and peered around the corner into the kitchen. Jolene was sitting at our kitchen table with a man I'd never seen before. He was tall, probably in his early 40s, wearing an expensive-looking suit that screamed corporate executive. Papers were spread across the table between them, and Jolene's laptop was open. "The transfer needs to happen before the end of the month," Doug said, reaching across to touch Jolene's hand. "Your husband's business account has enough to cover it without raising flags." I know, Jolene said, her voice softer than I'd heard it in months. "Michael trusts me completely with the finances. He doesn't even look at the business statements anymore." My hands clenched into fists. They were talking about my business account. My money. The money I'd earned crawling through attics and working 12-hour days to support our family. "And after this transfer, we'll have enough for the down payment on that condo in Sedona," Doug continued. "Just you, me, and a fresh start." The words hit me like a live wire. Jolene squeezed Doug's hand and leaned closer to him. "I've been thinking about Levi, though," she said. "He's almost ready for college. Maybe we should wait until after graduation." "Jolene, we've been planning this for 8 months," Doug replied firmly. "You can't keep living this double life forever. The money's already been moving through the shell companies. We need to execute the plan before your husband figures out what's happening." Shell companies. My wife was stealing from me with some guy named Doug, and they've been planning it for 8 months. I backed away for the kitchen doorway, my heart pounding so hard I was sure they'd hear it. I slipped out the back door and sat in my truck for 20 minutes, hands shaking as I tried to process what I just heard. 8 months. They'd been planning this betrayal for 8 months while I worked my tail off to provide for our family. When Doug's car finally pulled out of my driveway, I waited another 10 minutes before going back inside. Jolene was in the kitchen, humming while she cleaned up the papers they'd been reviewing. "Hey, honey," she said when I walked in, her voice sickeningly sweet. "You're home early." "Job finished ahead of schedule," I replied, studying her face. She looked completely normal, like she hadn't just been planning to run off with another man using my money. That night, after the boys went to bed, I started digging through our financial records. What I found made my blood boil. Transfers to companies I'd never heard of: Desert Sun Consulting, Phoenix Business Solutions, Southwest Marketing Group. All shell companies, no doubt. The amounts were staggering. $37,000 had been siphoned from Clark Electric over the past year. Money that should have been going toward Levi's college fund, toward our mortgage, toward our future. I called my brother, Jake, the next morning. "I need a favor," I told him. "Can you recommend a good private investigator?" "Mike, what's going on?" "I can't get into details yet, but I think Jolene's been stealing from the business." Jake was quiet for a moment. "Danny Rodriguez does investigation work now. He's former Phoenix PD, completely trustworthy." Within 2 hours, I was sitting across from Danny in a coffee shop downtown. I showed him the photos I'd taken of Doug's car, the license plate clearly visible. "This is Douglas Barrett," Danny said after running the plates. "He works for Pinnacle Solutions, same company as your wife. But here's the interesting part. He's not in marketing. He's in their accounting department." My jaw tightened. So he has access to financial systems. More than that, I did some digging on those shell companies you mentioned. They're all registered to addresses that don't exist, but they share one thing in common. They all have business relationships with companies that Douglas Barrett has worked for. "How long has this been going on?" "Based on what you've shown me, at least a year. Probably longer." Danny leaned forward. "Mike, this isn't just an affair. This is organized financial fraud. Your wife and this Barrett character are running a sophisticated operation." I hired Danny on the spot. Over the next 2 weeks, Danny's investigation revealed the full scope of their operation. Doug Barrett had been using his position at Pinnacle Solutions to create fake vendor accounts, then funneling money through those accounts to personal investments. Jolene had been the inside person, using her access to my business accounts to make it look like legitimate business expenses. They weren't just stealing from me. Doug had been doing this to other small business owners whose wives worked at Pinnacle Solutions. It was a coordinated scam, and Jolene was his star accomplice. The hardest part was acting normal at home. Every morning, I kissed Jolene goodbye knowing she was planning to abandon our family. Every evening, I helped the boys with homework while she sat at our kitchen table, probably calculating how much more she could steal. Liam was the one who almost broke me. He'd been having nightmares again, waking up scared that something bad was going to happen to our family. "Dad, you and Mom aren't going to leave us, are you?" he asked one night when I was tucking him into bed. Never, buddy, I said, meaning every word. You're stuck with me, forever. But I couldn't make that promise about his adoptive mother. Danny's surveillance confirmed what I already suspected. Doug and Jolene met regularly at a hotel outside Scottsdale, always on days when she claimed to be working late. They'd already put a down payment on a condo in Sedona, using money stolen from my business. They're planning to make their move soon, Danny told me during one of our meetings. Barrett's been liquidating assets, converting everything to cash. Your wife's been transferring bigger amounts lately, too. I think they're getting ready to run. That's when I decided to beat them to the punch. I called my lawyer, Patricia Wells, who'd handled the incorporation papers for Clark Electric. When I explained the situation, her voice turned hard as steel. Michael, what you're describing is embezzlement and conspiracy to commit fraud, Patricia said. With the evidence you've gathered, we can pursue both criminal and civil charges. What about protecting my kids through all this? We'll make sure they're taken care of. But you need to act fast before they can move any more money. That evening, I sat down with Levi and Asher. They were old enough to understand that something serious was happening. Boys, I need to tell you something about your mother. I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. She's been making some very bad choices that are going to affect our family. Levi's face went pale. What kind of choices? She's been stealing money from our business to be with another man, and she's planning to leave us. Asher slammed his fist on the table. That's not true. I wish it wasn't, son, but I have proof. The conversation that followed was the hardest thing I'd ever done as a father. 2 days after serving the papers, Jolene came home in a fury. I was in the garage working on some equipment when she stormed in, her face red with rage. How dare you freeze our accounts, she screamed. I couldn't even buy groceries today. I set down my multimeter and looked at her calmly. Our accounts? You mean the accounts you've been stealing from for 8 months? Her face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Desert Sun Consulting, Phoenix Business Solutions, Southwest Marketing Group. I watched her flinch with each name. Should I continue? Or do you want to tell me about Doug Barrett yourself? Michael, let me explain. Explain what? How you were planning to run off to Sedona with $37,000 of my money. How you've been meeting him at hotels while I worked overtime to pay for Levi's college. She tried to step closer, but I held up my hand. Don't. Just don't. The kids need their mother, she said, her voice breaking. You can't keep me from them. The kids need a mother who doesn't steal from their future. You made your choice when you decided Doug Barrett was more important than your family. It's not what you think. Doug said we could all start over together. All of us. I laughed bitterly. Jolene, I heard you in the kitchen. You two were planning to disappear without the kids. Her silence confirmed everything. Levi's college fund is gone, I continued. The money we saved for Samuel's braces, for Asher's soccer camp, for Liam's therapy, you stole it all. For what? A condo with your boyfriend. Doug loves me, she shouted. Something you haven't done in years. I loved you enough to work 60-hour weeks. I loved you enough to trust you with our finances, with our future. I loved you enough to open our home to Liam when he needed a family. My voice stayed steady, controlled. But that wasn't enough for you, was it? She started crying then, but I felt nothing. Those tears might have worked on me 6 months ago, but not anymore. The police will be here tomorrow to arrest you for embezzlement, I said quietly. Danny Rodriguez has been building a case against you and Doug for 2 weeks. Bank records, surveillance photos, recordings, everything. You can't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you. You did this to yourself. I stepped past her toward the house. Pack your things tonight. You're not welcome here anymore. What about the children? What about them? You were ready to abandon them anyway. That night, Jolene packed 2 suitcases and left. She didn't even say goodbye to the boys. The next morning, Detective Williams came to the house to take my statement. The boys were at school, which made the conversation easier. Mr. Clark, we've arrested Douglas Barrett and issued a warrant for your wife, he said. The evidence you and your investigator provided is substantial. This case should be straightforward. What happens to the money they stole? We've frozen their assets. The condo down payment will be returned to your business account. As for the rest, that'll depend on what the courts decide. After the detective left, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, planning how to tell the kids their mother was going to prison. Levi came home first, dropping his backpack by the door. Dad, Is it true what everyone's saying? That mom got arrested. I nodded. She and Doug Barrett were caught stealing money. Not just from us, but from other families too. How much money? From us. About $37,000. From others? Probably a lot more. Levi sat down across from me. Does this mean I can't go to college? Son, you're going to college if I have to work 3 jobs to make it happen. Your mother's mistakes don't get to ruin your future. When the other boys came home, we had a family meeting. Samuel cried. Asher punched a wall and put a hole in the drywall. Liam just stared at the table, probably remembering what it felt like to lose parents before. Are we going to be okay? Samuel asked through his tears. We're going to be better than okay, I told them. We're going to be honest with each other. No more secrets, no more lies. Over the following weeks, word spread through our neighborhood about Jolene's arrest. Some people whispered behind my back, wondering what kind of husband drives his wife to steal. Others offered support, bringing casseroles and inviting the boys to their houses for dinner. Clark Electric actually benefited from the publicity. Other small business owners, worried about their own finances, hired me to review their electrical systems and security measures. Word got around that I was a straight shooter who'd stood up to fraud in my own home. The hardest part was watching Liam withdraw into himself. He'd been through abandonment before, and seeing another mother figure disappear from his life was devastating. Dad, he said one night when I was tucking him in, was it my fault she left? Because I'm not really her son. Liam, listen to me, I said, sitting on the edge of his bed. None of this is your fault. You are my son, period. What happened with Jolene has nothing to do with you, and everything to do with her bad choices. But what if you decide I'm too much trouble too? I pulled him into a hug. That's never going to happen. You're stuck with me forever, buddy. 3 months later, Jolene pled guilty to embezzlement and fraud. She got 2 years in prison and full restitution. Doug Bear got 5 years. We never heard from her again. 6 months after Jolene's conviction, life had settled into a routine. The boys were adapting well, Clark Electric was thriving, and I'd started dating a school counselor named Rebecca who understood the challenges of blended families. Then Liam came home from school with news that changed everything. Dad, there's a man asking questions about Mom at school, he said, dropping his backpack nervously. What kind of questions? He asked Mrs. Peterson if Mom ever talked about having other children. Kid she gave up or something. My blood ran cold. I called the school immediately and learned that a man claiming to be from social services had been making inquiries. But when I contacted the county, they had no record of any investigation. That evening, a knock came at our door. Standing on my porch was a man in his 30s with Jolene's dark eyes and sharp nose. Are you Michael Clark? He asked. Depends who's asking. My name is David Foster. Jolene Clark is my sister. I'd never heard Jolene mention a brother. What do you want? To talk about my nephew. The one she told me about in her letters from prison. Which nephew? I have 4 sons. David's expression grew serious. The one she had before she married you. The one she gave up for adoption when he was 3. The world tilted under my feet. That's impossible. Liam Richardson, born April 15th, 2014. Mother, Jolene Foster, which was her maiden name. Father, Jake Richardson. David pulled out a manila folder. She gave him up when she couldn't handle being a single mother. The adoptive parents were Jake and Sarah Richardson. I grabbed the porch railing. Jake had never told me he adopted Liam. He'd always said Liam was his biological son. You're lying, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Jake Richardson was sterile from cancer treatment as a teenager. He and Sarah couldn't have biological children. They adopted Liam through a private agency, and Jolene signed away all parental rights. David handed me the folder. When Jolene heard about the plane crash, she knew Liam would come to you. She thought it was perfect. She'd get her son back without having to explain the truth. Why didn't she ever tell me? Because then you'd know she abandoned her child once before. And because she knew if you found out the truth, you'd realize she was capable of abandoning children. I invited David inside, and we spent 3 hours going through documents. Birth certificate, adoption papers, medical records, it was all there. Liam was Jolene's biological son, given up because she wasn't ready to be a mother. Does Liam know? I asked. No. Jake and Sarah never told him he was adopted. They wanted him to feel completely secure. And now he's lost his adoptive parents and doesn't even know his biological mother is in prison for stealing from the family that took him in. David nodded grimly. Jolene wants to see him. She's been writing letters, asking me to bring him to visit. Over my dead body, I said firmly. That woman has done enough damage. She's still his biological mother. She's a convicted felon who abandoned him once and was planning to abandon him again. Biology doesn't make her a mother. It just makes her a DNA donor. David studied me for a long moment. You really love that boy. He's my son. Has been since the day he walked through that door. What are you going to tell him? I looked toward the stairs, where I could hear the boys doing homework. I'm going to tell him the truth, age appropriately, when he's ready to hear it. But I'm also going to make sure he knows that the only thing that matters is that he's loved and wanted here. David left his contact information and promised not to approach Liam directly. But I knew this wasn't over. Jolene had one more card to play, and she was going to use her biological connection to try to manipulate our family again. I spent 3 sleepless nights deciding how to tell Liam about his biological connection to Jolene. Finally, I called Rebecca for advice. Michael, this is going to rock his world, she said. He's already dealing with abandonment issues from losing Jake and Sarah. Finding out Jolene gave him up as a toddler could be devastating. But he deserves to know the truth. Yes, but carefully, and with professional support. I arranged for Liam to meet with Dr. Martinez, the child psychologist who'd been helping him process his grief. Together, we planned how to reveal the information in a way that wouldn't destroy his sense of security. The conversation took place on a Saturday morning in my home office, with Dr. Martinez present for support. Liam, I need to tell you something important about your birth parents and about Jolene, I began. His face immediately showed fear. Am I in trouble? No, buddy. You're not in trouble. But I found out some information that you need to know. I took a deep breath. Do you remember how Jake and Sarah became your parents? They adopted me when I was little, right? Because my birth parents couldn't take care of me. I nodded. That's right. Well, it turns out that your birth mother was someone you already knew. It was Jolene. Liam stared at me in confusion. Jolene was my real mom. She gave birth to you, yes. But being a real mom means more than that. It means taking care of you, loving you, being there when you need help. Jake and Sarah were your real parents because they chose to love you and raise you. So Jolene knew who I was when she lived with us. Yes, she knew. And she still left. This was the hardest part. Yes, son. She left anyway. Liam was quiet for a long time, processing this information with Dr. Martinez's gentle guidance. Finally, he looked up at me. Dad, does this mean I have to go live with her when she gets out of prison? Never, I said firmly. You're my son legally and permanently. Nothing about that changes. But what if she wants me back? Liam, she had 18 months in prison to write you letters, to ask about you, to try to make things right. She never did. The only reason this came up is because her brother contacted me, not because she's fighting for you. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. Liam, how do you feel about all this? Confused, he admitted, and kind of mad. Why didn't she want me when I was little? And why didn't she want me when I came to live here? Sometimes adults make bad choices that have nothing to do with the children involved, I explained. Jolene's decisions about you don't reflect your worth. They reflect her problems. Over the following weeks, we had many more conversations about family, biology, and what it means to belong somewhere. Liam struggled with feelings of rejection and confusion, but he also began to understand that his value didn't depend on Jolene's choices. The breakthrough came when he asked me, Dad, if you found out tomorrow that Levi or Asher or Samuel weren't your biological sons, would you love them less? Not for 1 second, I replied. Then it doesn't matter that Jolene's my birth mom, does it? You chose me anyway. That's exactly right, buddy. 3 months later, Jolene was released from prison. She never contacted us, never asked to see Liam, never tried to be part of his life. Her brother David called once to let me know she'd moved to California with some new boyfriend. Liam took the news with remarkable maturity. Good, he said simply. I already have a family. 2 years had passed since Jolene's release from prison, and life had found its rhythm. Levi was thriving at Arizona State. Asher had gotten a soccer scholarship to community college. Samuel was becoming my right-hand man on electrical jobs. And Liam had grown into a confident 12-year-old who called me dad without hesitation. Then Rebecca and I got married in a small ceremony at our church, with all 4 boys as groomsmen. For the first time in years, I felt like our family was complete and secure. That peace shattered on a Tuesday morning when an unknown woman called my office. "Mr. Clark? My name is Jennifer Foster. I'm Jolene's sister." Jolene never mentioned having a sister, I said cautiously. We were estranged for years because of her problems with money and men. "But Mr. Clark, I'm calling because Jolene died 3 days ago." The words hit me unexpectedly hard. Despite everything she'd done, she was still the mother of my children, the woman I'd once planned to grow old with. "What happened?" "Drug overdose. She'd been living with some dealer in Oakland. The police found her in a motel room." Jennifer's voice broke slightly. "There was an envelope with your name on it. She asked me to give it to you, if anything ever happened to her." 2 hours later, Jennifer stood on my porch holding a manila envelope. She looked nothing like Jolene, blonde where Jolene was dark, soft where Jolene was sharp. "She wrote this about 6 months ago," Jennifer explained. "Said if you were reading it, something had gone wrong." After Jennifer left, I sat in my workshop staring at the envelope. Rebecca found me there an hour later. "You don't have to read it alone," she said, sitting beside me on my workbench. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a letter in Jolene's familiar handwriting and a USB drive. "Michael," the letter began, "if you're reading this, something's gone wrong. I know I have no right to contact you after everything I did, but there are things you need to know about Doug and what really happened. I wasn't Doug's only victim. He had a whole network of women like me, wives with access to business accounts. But I found out he wasn't just stealing money. He was connected to people who hurt families when they couldn't pay. The USB drive has everything: bank records, names of other victims, evidence of threats Doug made against families who tried to expose him. I tried to go to the police, but Doug said he'd hurt the boys if I talked. I know you'll never forgive me for what I did to our family, but please use this information to protect other families from what we went through. And tell Liam that giving him up when he was 3 was the biggest mistake of my life, but having you adopt him was the only thing I ever did right. I'm sorry, Michael, for all of it." My hands were shaking as I finished reading. Rebecca squeezed my shoulder. She was trying to make amends. Rebecca said softly, "Too little, too late," I replied, but my voice lacked conviction. That evening, I called Detective Williams and turned over the USB drive. What we discovered changed everything. Doug Barrett hadn't just been running financial scams. He'd been connected to a larger criminal organization that targeted small business owners across the Southwest. The information Jolene provided led to the arrest of 12 more people and helped recover over $2 million for dozens of families. 6 months after Jolene's death, the final pieces of her criminal network had been dismantled. The federal prosecutor called to thank me personally for providing the evidence that broke the case wide open. "Your wife's information saved a lot of families," he said. "She may have made terrible choices, but she tried to do the right thing in the end." I shared the news with the boys that evening. Levi, now home for summer break, was the first to speak. "So Mom wasn't just stealing for herself. She started that way," I explained, "but it became bigger than she could handle. At the end, she was trying to protect other families." "Does that excuse what she did to us?" Asher asked. "No, but it explains why she couldn't just stop when she wanted to." Liam, now 13 and wise beyond his years, looked thoughtful. "Dad, do you think she really loved us?" "I think she loved you boys as much as she was capable of loving anyone," I said carefully. "But love isn't enough if someone can't make good choices." Samuel, always the practical one, asked, "What happens to all the money they recovered?" "Some of it comes back to families like ours. The rest goes to victims we didn't even know existed." 3 months later, I received a check from the Federal Restitution Fund for $43,000, money recovered from Doug Barrett's criminal network. It was more than Jolene had originally stolen from us. "What should we do with it?" I asked Rebecca as we sat at our kitchen table. "College fund," she said immediately. "All 4 boys deserve the best education we can give them." That fall, Phoenix started his senior year, knowing his college was fully paid for. Asher had his choice of universities for soccer scholarships. Samuel was already talking about engineering school, and Liam was thriving in middle school, confident in his place in our family. One evening, as I was teaching Jack basic electrical work in the garage, he looked up at me with those serious eyes. "Dad, do you ever think about Jolene?" "Sometimes." "What?" "I remember her making pancakes on Sunday mornings. Before everything went bad. She wasn't all bad, buddy. She just made some terrible choices that hurt people. But we're okay now, right? Our family is safe. I pulled him into a hug. We're more than okay. We're stronger than we've ever been. Rebecca appeared in the garage doorway. Dinner's ready. And Levi called. He made the dean's list again. As we walked toward the house together, I realized that sometimes the worst things that happen to you can lead to the best things in your life. Jolene's betrayal had nearly destroyed us, but it had also shown us what we were really made of. Clark Electric was thriving, employing 12 people and known throughout Phoenix for honest dealing. My 4 sons were growing into men of character, and Rebecca had brought a steady love into our lives that we'd never known we needed. That night, tucking the younger boys into bed, I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in years. We'd weathered the storm and come out stronger on the other side. "Dad," Liam said as I turned off his light, "thank you for choosing me. Thank you for choosing us too, buddy. Some families are born. Others are built. Ours was forged in fire, and that made it unbreakable."